Hello friends, today I changed my mono topic to rest a bit from so much political tension awaiting events, but at the end I give very interesting information. Opinion article: Use and throw. Against the planet obsolescence, repairing a device is more difficult each day, every day. Its objective is the economic profit of the manufacturer. The consumer's need is not taken into account. The accumulation of waste is not taken into account either. The right to repair begins to make its way in Europe. European activists defend the right to repair devices. Also, the workers become obsolete in their maturity. The image of the Viking in the capital appears years before in The Simpsons. Trump has retired with his team to find out the best course of action. He has 4 options. Hasn't made his mind yet, so he's haunted. If Trump wouldn't apply the Insurrection Law, Biden would do it against his supporters. Meeting with military personnel at the National Defense Command Center in Abilene, Texas. Trump's exit occurs with the sun in Aquarius and the moon in Taurus, 2 fixed signs. Let's start. I remember some very cheap American wrist watches in the 60s that only had one defect, that their gears easily rusted and stopped working. I also remember some very cheap cardboard pieces with the keyboard drawn on cardboard, which were disposable like the Kleenex tissues. We have lost the culture of repair. Our parents and grandparents brought something fixed in 10 times, and it kept working. Furthermore, all the advanced civilization in the universe make unbreakable and almost eternal devices. The planet obsolescence has created a growing unrest among consumers, so that in recent time activists, the media, organizations, and even the consumers themselves and various companies are taking actions to reverse this practice. The biggest problem is when working human beings become a throwaway instrument, even though they are kept in full physical and mental condition. Because if you are over 50, forget about looking for work. When personal computers began, the computer world was divided into supporters of PCs and Apple's Macintosh, that is, that it was called PCs and Macintosh, who had great debates about which device was the best. I was Macintero for its superior technology at first, with its Motorola chips, but I lost faith when I realized its monopoly and planet obsolescence. For this reason, I went to the side of the Linux operating system and free software, because all its source code can be freely used, modified and redistributed by any person, company or institution. I refuse to use an operating system from someone so suspicious as Mr. Doors. The Linux system will not be so bad when used by various governments and public administrations, armies, social networks, and even the International Space Station. I bought a PC without an operating system to install the latest version of Linux Mint 20 on it. Definition: the planet obsolescence or planet is the determination or programming of the end of the useful life of a product, so that after a period of time calculated in advance by the manufacturer or by the company during the design of phase of the same, this is become obsolete, non-functional, useless, or unusable by various procedures. For example, due to lack of spare parts, and it is necessary to buy a new one to replace it. Its function is to generate more income due to more frequent purchases, to generate addiction relationships that result in continuous economic benefits for longer periods of time for companies or manufacturers. The objective, the objective of obsolescence is not to create quality products, but exclusively economic profit, without taking into account the needs of the consumers, not the environmental repercussions on production, and much less the consequences that are generated from the point of view of the accumulation of waste and the pollution that it entails. Right to repair. Repairing a phone or a computer can be quite an ordeal for European consumers. This is because their manufacturers often limit the time of use of their products, which is known as planned obsolescence, and even make it difficult to repair. This situation has led to the mobilization of many European activists who want to obtain the right to a simple and affordable repair with which to produce less waste and promote the circular economy. In quotes, we are producing more e-waste and garbage than ever before. We are talking about 53 million tons, which is huge. So, by giving people the right and the ability to repair their own products, it would clearly reduce the amount of waste that we are sending them to landfills, says Chloe Mikolajzaf, activist of the European movement called Right to Repair. Some European politicians also advocate for change. They propose changing the term planned obsolescence to premature obsolescence, which would further protect consumers in their devices stop working. In quotes, scheduled obsolescence make you think it was the manufacturers who purposely scheduled the expiration. From a legal point of view, it is difficult to prove, whereas with premature obsolescence, all that is needed to prove obsolescence is to demonstrate that the useful life of an object doesn't correspond to what it should be in reality, says David Cormand, belonging to the group the Greens European Free Alliance. The European Parliament's Committee of the Internal Market and Consumer Protection recognized the right to repair but did not impose stricter standards or manufacturers such as mandatory labels to indicate the useful life and repair potential of each product. In quotes, what disappoints us is the fact that they have adopted amendments limiting mandatory product labeling and making it voluntary. They have also awakened the provisions on premature obsolescence in favor of planned obsolescence, which we know is very difficult to demonstrate, and they are removing the reference to mandatory sustainability criteria for public procurement. So, in general, they have diluted the initial proposal. Culture of repair. The durability of technological products, or what is the same, their ability to operate in optimal conditions for a certain time, not only affects the consumers and the decisions they make to purchase them, but also has strong environmental implications. Excuse me. On the basis of these questions, the idea of the right to repair emerges that the consumer can have the necessary parts and instructions to restore the appliances and have truthful information about the useful life of the product to make a conscious consumption in terms of environmental responsibility. In this context, very diverse initiatives proliferate, such as community repair events, where many young people want to experience what is behind the screen. One of the proposals is the introduction of mandatory labeling for manufacturers on the sustainability and repairability of the product, but some political groups oppose its mandatory character. Controversy. Theoretically, the market, through free competition, should produce the highest quality goods for the consumer and the lowest possible cost in the long run. However, there is an intrinsic contradiction in this concept, since the market requires that the producer, in order to remain competitive, reduce his cost in all phases of the production process. This usually translates into the payment of minimum wages, but also in the use of lower quality materials and inferior design. This can be called intrinsic obsolescence. The second problem is that no product can afford a longer shelf life that is necessary to maintain the cycle of consumption. Due to this, the expiration, failure, or damage of a product is planned after a specific period. This is planned or programmed obsolescence itself. When you want to impose sanctions through legislation on planned obsolescence, the strategy adopted by the companies is to mask it within that we have called intrinsic obsolescence, suppressing or ignoring new technologies that could lead to a more durable, sustainable, or environmentally friendly product. Digital products are objects in which programmed obsolescence is more evident. Most digital computer components, rather than being durable and repairable, are disposable. However, the root of the problem remains with the industry itself. Repairmen encounter difficulties such as sealed units that are impossible to disassemble, and reassemble. Units manufactured following an automated process that, when reproduced manually for repair purposes, generates the cost of labor higher than the cost of the new product, or directly the inability to obtain spare parts, either because they have never been released as such or because they stopped being manufactured according to the planned obsolescence schedule that the unit followed. Attempt to impeachment. Trump faces impeachment on him. President faces, this is a mistake, faces the threat of a second impeachment trial after his supporters stormed the Capitol. As Democratic leaders demanded his removal, the president moved closer than ever to a formal concession, acknowledging that the new administration would be sworn in and promising to ensure a smooth transition in a new video. Pelosi urged invoking the 25th Amendment to remove Trump. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, has urged invoking the 25th Amendment to the Constitution to remove the president. The impeachment is possible under the Section 4th of said amendment, and to apply it, the Vice President and the majority of the Cabinet Secretaries must conclude that Trump would be incapable of fulfilling the powers and duties of his office. If the President objected to this decision, the dismissal would depend on Congress. It would take two-thirds of the vote of both the House of Representatives and the Senate for the Vice President to retain the presidential functions. 100 Democratic congressmen support the impeachment process. Almost 100 Democratic congressmen have shown themselves in favor of the impeachment of the president through a process of impeachment. However, Vice President Pence rejects the Democrats' demands to invoke the 25th Amendment. He may have troubled her conscience if he has it. Reconciliation. Trump calls for healing and reconciliation after the disturbances in the Capitol. In quotes, "This moment demands healing and reconciliation," said Trump. 2020 has been a challenging time for our people, a threatening health crisis that has disrupted the lives of our citizens, isolated millions in their homes, damaged our economy, and claimed countless lives. Lin Wood's message, in quotes, "Time to rest. I have to stay awake to see the conclusion of the greatest robbery attempt in history. Now it is a complete crime. Many traitors will be arrested and imprisoned in the next few days. The president will be for more years in office, I mean." Close quotes. Message on Twitter from Dan Scavino. A statement from the president on the electoral certification. In quotes, "Although I totally disagree with the result of the elections and the facts confirm it, however, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. I have always said that we will continue our fight to ensure that all illegal votes are counted. While this represents the end of the first term in presidential history, it is only the beginning of our fight to make America great again." Do you realize that he doesn't say at any time that there is going to be a presidential transition? Enigmatic. According to Cobra, the forces of light are suggesting to everyone to refrain from violence. They are removing all negative non-physical entities from that area, and they have involved in some other operations. They ask everyone to feel guided until the situation is solved. On Thursday, December 21st, at the last minute of 2020, Judy Shelton, an advocate for the gold-backed currency, was confirmed before the Federal Reserve Board by the Senate Banking Committee. Who is the Viking? Rectification. The Reuters agency affirms that the man with the face painted using skin and horns, who stormed the Capitol joint for Trump, shared tens of thousands of times on the night of January 6, 2021, claimed that one of the individuals photographed during the protest in Washington, D.C., where they stormed the Capitol in an attempt to overturn their electoral defeat, was a supporter of the mask movement. However, past photographs of the man, easily identifiable by wearing hat with fur and horns and painted face, show that he has attended pro-Trump rallies and has spoken in support of Trump's policies. The image of Jake Angeli, or Shaman, as some called him, traveled the world after he stormed the Capitol with a naked torso, a fur hat and horn. Aspiring actor, the young Arizona native has toured President Trump's acts since 2019, looking for adherents to the conspiracy theory of the famous letter. Curiously, the image of the Viking in the Capitol appears years before in The Simpsons, and the manifestation in the Capitol appeared much earlier in one of the famous Illuminati letters. Amazing. Final act. On Thursday night, Trump was working at the National Defense Command Center in Abilene, Texas. Today, Friday, he called the National Guard and flew to Camp David. Mass arrests are about to occur. Be prepared for a supposed blackout. We were already in a period in a period of darkness on Wednesday, January 6th. When the president announced the storm is upon us, it's possible that he has no choice but to go to the application of the Insurrection Act, martial law, and the media blackout, but I don't know if he would dare to it. In a video by Robert David Steele, Simon Pax, and Charlie Ward, three very striking claims are made. We raided 7 cities, and in Washington we captured 12 laptops. The president is in a military command center planning in detail the next 10 days. The final act will be surgical, but massive. There is a talk of a blackout which would not be symbolic as before, but nobody knows anything for sure. The encrypted communication satellites of the Italian government were managed by the Vatican and transmitted swampy information all over the world. According to Don Carlos de Marbella, what happened on January 6th was one of the best planned traps. It was done on purpose for various reasons. They needed to find out where the funding was coming from exactly, and it turned out that it was coming from the Vatican. The other trap that was set, which was an absolute pitch, was when they stormed the Capitol, which is to say, it was a diversionary maneuver. When they came in, all the Trump supporters were peaceful, but they were pushing, and there was a group of masked warriors that came in. But there was also another group of very active Trump supporters who were actually special ops teams disguised as protesters, who, while they were in the building, they managed to seize 12 laptops from inside the building, which have an evidence cargo ship, and Nancy Pelosi left in such a hurry that she forgot her personal items. Don Carlos adds that the president is very grateful right now with this team that has obtained 12 laptops that were left on the desk. On the other side, Simon Pax believes that they were special operation teams that entered the Capitol, not to cause violence but to search for information, because those laptops they gave to Democrats are the same because they have their own code number on them. He adds that Trump later went on Texas to one of his comment posts, and that there has been a 6-hour incommunicado meeting at a military base to decide what will happen. Asked what is going to happen until January 20th, Simon replied that if the same people who convinced Trump to be president, if they did not betray him, then there would be an executive order, martial law, and arrests. In other words, if the coalition did not betray the president, he would be there for another 4 years. Don Carlos believes that Trump has 4 aces in his power, and that he has not yet played most of his hard cards because he has not needed it. In his opinion, the 4 aces that he has in his possession are the Insurrection Law, if he needs it. He has the military and many other things. That's the reason of why he has retired for a time with his team to find out what is the best way to act. He probably would have selected 4, 5, or 6 options from the aces that he has in his hand, and he is not quite sure which one to play. So he is tormenting himself. He is suffering. The only thing he would probably get published in the large amount of blackmail involved with politicians. That is something that may come out in the next few days. The political and judicial paths seem to be exhausted. If he didn't dare to apply the Insurrection Act, Biden would apply it against the supporters of his rival. An astrologer friend has told me that Trump's supposed exit occurs with the sun in Aquarius and the moon in Taurus, two fixed signs which supposedly would prevent him from leaving, but astrology is not an exact science, but an approximate one. More of the new era. Aquarius is the ruler of technological advancements, a breaker of glass ceilings, and an inspirer of innovative thoughts. Aquarius energy is about fighting for the unfortunate, challenging injustice, and pushing the status quo. Time to change things. We can have comfort, but we can only truly enjoy if it is not obtained at the expense of others. Jupiter is all about expansion, and in Aquarius it would encourage us to expand our thoughts and ideas. His energy would only deepen and magnify Saturn's desire for us to be more responsible in terms of how we advance innovation and social growth. Together, Jupiter and Saturn will demand that all people be treated equally and that Mother Earth be respected. If we can't figure this out, Saturn, nicknamed Father Karma, would be happy to pierce this particular lesson for all of us. When Saturn and Jupiter come together, there are many opportunities to seize. Jupiter has a King Midas touch like no other planet. But when he joins to Saturn, you need to work a little harder to seize the opportunities. Saturn has to do with dedication and responsibility. He wants us to show that we can earn an honest living. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, friends, and take care. Look after you.